Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Youth Matters, the show looking at local, global and national issues affecting the youth. Now on today's show we are discussing the tragedy that took place on the 14th of June when, due to the fire, many innocent lives were lost in the Grenfell Tower tragedy. আপনারা জানেন তো 14 তারিখ জুনের টাওয়ারের মাঝে আগুন লাগিয়া কত মানুষ মারা গেছিল ওটা লইয়া আমরা আজকে শো করলাম Joining us for the last segment is Ishrat Tasnim, who is whose family members, extended family members, relatives were victims of the fire. We also have Abdul Majid, who is still here, and we also have brother Amjad, who is supporting us on behalf of Sakina Tours and talking about his experiences as well. Tasnim, I'll start with you. Tell us about the impact it's had on you and how you were related to some of those who lost their lives.
Well, the impact it's had has been quite traumatic because I remember the night it happened and we were having suhoor at home and we could just hear like helicopter sirens just going throughout the whole night and we had no clue what was going on until we had family and relatives call in and say, can you not see the fire? And just the sort of people that you've kind of grown up with, people you've gone to work with, are stuck in that building, probably burning alive. And, the emergency services hadn't responded as quickly as the newspapers were saying because we had people on ground who were there before the emergency services. And it was quite a traumatic experience for the community as well as for someone who's kind of been born and bred and grown up in that same area. And it's scary for someone who also lives in a building as well. It could happen to anyone. So it was probably traumatic most.
Sure. And in terms of having spoken to the family members now and the relatives, do you what is the biggest frustration and anger that you felt with the way that it was all managed?
It's just the lack of answers that we got. I think probably about a day or two later, I think the whole community's kind of, our tears had dried up and it was just like we needed answers for why this was allowed to happen and why it was it happened over so long. Because I remember that night also coming back from Taraweeh and we have our mosque and there's a bridge. Over the bridge you can see the fire. This was almost 24 hours later and the fire was still so intense, and it was just the negligence. Like, why is this still happening 24 hours when we're supposedly meant to have, trained firefighters and trained services? Why is this happening almost 24 hours later?
Okay. Once again, this is a show where we want to hear from you, the audience watching at home. So please, if you know a family member or a relative, a friend, anyone who was affected by this, whether they passed away or whether a family relative was affected, please get in touch. You've got the number on the screen. You can also email us as well and tell us about how you've been involved, what's been happening at ground level. আপনারা জানেন তো 14 তারিখ বিল্ডিং জ্বলিয়া কত মানুষ মারা গেছেন আপনারা যদি কেউ জানেন এফেক্টেড হইছেন তো প্লিজ শরিক হোক আমরা হোক আপনারা একটা লইয়া আপনারা ভিউ খিতা সরকারি নাফ করা হইছে নি পুলিশে নাফ করছে নি আপনারা প্লিজ আমরা লগে শরিক হইবা কলার অন দ্য লাইন আসসালামু আলাইকুম কোলা
হ্যাঁ জিও ভাই আসসালামু আলাইকুম
ওয়া আসসালাম ভাই
একটা চমৎকার প্রোগ্রাম নিয়ে আসছেন ধন্যবাদ দিয়ে সময় নষ্ট করতে চাই না বিষয়টা হচ্ছে যে 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 ইসলামের যখন আগুন লাগে তখন সেখানে ইনভেস্টিগেশন ছজন যখন মারা যায় তার ইনভেস্টিগেশনে সরকার এই কাজগুলো সরকার কখনো করেনি আমি জানি না তখনকার এই বাড়ির জন্য এই দায়িত্বে কোন মন্ত্রী ছিলেন আমি জানি না নাম্বার ওয়ান নাম্বার টু হচ্ছে যে আমাদের দেশে ইংল্যান্ডে কমপক্ষে 60টা বিল্ডিং যা চেক করা হয়েছে 60টার মধ্যেই এখানে রুফ ক্লিয়ারিং হয়েছে যারা কি ফায়ার অ্যাট্রাক্ট করবে আমার প্রশ্ন যেটা সেটা হচ্ছে যে এই যে কাউন্সিলররা রিজাইন করবে দুজন কাউন্সিলর আজকে হয়তো চলে গেছেন যারা হেড অ্যান্ড ডেপুটি হেড এরা চলে গেছেন হু রিয়েলি কেয়ারস অ্যাবাউট দেম এরা তো ভেরি চুনোপুটি মানুষ কারণ যারা মিনিস্টার যিনি ছিলেন সেই লোকটাকে তো আজকে ধরা দরকার এবং তাকে তুমি কেন ইভেন আপনি থেরেসা মে হোল কনজারভেটিভ পার্টি হোল কনজারভেটিভ কি বলে যে গভর্নমেন্ট এটা তো সবাই রেসপন্সিবল আজকে এই যে আমাদের ফরেন সেক্রেটারি আছে কি বলে ক্রাউন বরিস জনসন উনি 10,000 ফায়ার ফাইটার কাটছে 10,000 ফায়ার ফাইটার্স কাটছে তো এই সমস্ত লোকগুলোকে কেন 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 ধরা হয় না ওখানে বলা হচ্ছে 80 জন লোক মারা গেছে 120টা ফ্ল্যাট আমি সেদিন হিসাব করে দেখলাম আমার বউয়ের সাথে যে 8
Okay, thank you. Jazakumullah khair for your call. The brother, clearly, someone who's very emotionally involved and affected, and I think many people at home probably can relate to that. But Abdul Malik, how would you respond to what the brother's saying? He's talking about obviously holding people to account, and the fact that there were cuts made and firefighters, and previous guests spoke about this as well, that the response was slow, but one of the reasons for that was the lack of firefighters. What's your take on it?
I agree with the caller. Whoever the brother was, he's exactly said someone has to take responsibility, especially Boris Johnson. He didn't make 10,000 cuts a couple of years ago. That was the biggest thing that's the worst thing, because that could have prevented from these things happening. We needed fire safety, and plus the time it took them, obviously they said they got there within, God knows, 10-15 minutes. That wasn't the case. There was more, the people around local, they were there before them. So there must have been a lot of cover-ups that they're trying to do, trying to make them look better that they were there. Because obviously, if you're going to reduce all these people, there'll be more time it will take for the situation to be resolved.
Okay, brother Amjad, before
Go
ahead.
I was saying, just some people just resigning, it's not enough. There needs to be a criminal investigation to this, and some people do need to go to jail.
Theresa May has obviously mentioned that an inquiry will be laid into, will be looked into to what's happened.
We do need to see this taken into action, and we just see action taken.
Sure. Before we watch a video, once again showing us, some of the victims that were affected by that. Ishra, I wanted to ask you about the psychological effects on those who are obviously affected by this. We need to have support for trauma for those who are affected. What kind of support do you feel? From what you've spoken to your relatives about and so forth, are they getting the support that they need?
So I think the day after it happened, I was in the St. Cheltenham's Church, and I was volunteering and helping give out aid to the victims. And I remember this man with his brother came in, and he had a family of 8. And he just said, they're not telling us anything, they're not telling us where to go, they're not telling us, what to do, and they don't know where to go for help, they don't know where to go for aid, they don't know where to go for, names of people that may have been missing. And
but we've heard, in the media, the government talk about how money's been put aside, £5 million has been put aside, people will be given immediate cash, those who are affected, then there will be a follow-up, thousands of pounds will be put into their account. Are you telling me that, weeks on, this hasn't happened?
The victims and their families, they're not seeing this money. I don't know what the media has been saying, but every time I see it, it really infuriates me, because I've spoken to the victims myself. They haven't seen this money. They don't know where they're going. They're going to be rehoused into these 35 billion luxury flats, but that's the least thing they're worried about. They just want a roof over their heads right now. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they're going. And the media are basically lying through their teeth, because it's a cover-up. It's basically a cover-up of how the system has failed them, because they are working class people and of people of immigrants. That's why.
Sure, we've got a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Wa alaikum salam.
How would you like to contribute to the discussion?
I just want to elaborate on certain points that Tahir made.
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead.
Wa alaikum salam.
Islam. Yeah, if you could lower your TV volume, brother.
Yeah, that's
and then make your points. Thank you.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, I'd just like to elaborate on certain points that Brother Tahir made, that in terms of how we can go to the moon, but we can't save people on the top levels of the 24th floor, and how this is due to a massive gross negligence on behalf of the government. And this is due to mainly because of austerity and all of them cuts that have been made by the fire services and the police and all our national services. And I'd just like to elaborate on them points. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your call, brother. We've just had an email from, and we'll go back to that email after we've carried on with the discussion with you. Brother Amjad, I wanted to speak about, it seems I guess the frustration, and just listening to what Ishraq was saying, what we seem to be hearing in the media and what's happening at ground level, there seems to be a big kind of conflict, and it's not in parity.
No, it's true.
It's causing a lot of confusion, and it's not consistent with what we're hearing.
Absolutely. If you actually go on the ground and you speak to the people, you will get a complete and a true picture. Okay? But the media, like she said, the media and the government, everyone, there is a big cover-up. Okay, like I mentioned earlier on, this is very shameful. Okay, this disaster should have never happened. They completely lost. They don't know how to handle it. Okay, now that it has happened, and how do they do damage control? Because it's very embarrassing as well. Because the whole world is watching. Okay, and just yesterday I heard, and after all these days, this lady was saying there's people in the hotels that were put in the hotels. Now they've been given a bill to pay for their lunch. So they don't have no money. They lost everything. They were put in a hotel. Now they have to pay for their own lunch. So they got no food.
So they were put in the hotel by whom?
They were put in the hotel
by the council.
Yes.
So would it then not be the council's responsibility to?
Yes, of course.
Cover the cost.
Of course it is. And
these are people who have obviously had everything burnt down.
Everything burnt down. But they've been
access.
given a bill, and they don't have food to eat. Okay. And how are they going to pay this bill? And the hotel is just turning a blind eye, saying, "Look, you can't eat here." And this actually has happened, where people actually turned away and say, "I'm sorry, you can't eat in here. You have to pay for it," like this.
Okay. But Abdul Malik?
I want to add something to that. But for that was a situation. But that's when National Zakat Foundation and other local charity group has helped them, these people. So they're doing what I'm trying to say is the council and the government, they're not doing their job.
It's the local projects.
Local projects are doing the job for them, which doesn't make sense. If you, as I said even before, you took the leadership, work with it. You lead, we'll follow. Don't just expect other people to do your job for you. Because if that was the case, then there's no need for the leadership.
Absolutely, there's no leadership at the moment. There's no organisation.
Ishraq, what do you think if these local projects, and what seems to be coming across to me is the heroes seem to be the local people in this, okay, who have taken the lead. How bad would it have been had we not had these projects getting together and supporting those people who needed that support?
If those projects, if those charities, if the community wasn't on the grounds that night and all throughout that day, many more people would have lost their lives. So many people would have lost their lives, because it was just the sense of coming together. And I have to say this as well, that the Muslims were the first to respond, but the churches were the first to open their doors as well, because I was working day in and day out in the church myself, working alongside, doesn't matter who you are, black, white, but we all came together. And if it wasn't for us, and so many more people would have lost their lives that day.
Sure. So. I think there were local residents, Abu Malik Bhai, who were speaking about, the contribution made by a lot of the Muslim community, whereby they were coming from prayer and on the way they came and supported. Do you feel as though that was represented as well in other kind of aspects of the media?
It hasn't. I haven't heard anything, a cover-up saying that the Muslim people, regardless, they were the first one to help. It was a community. When you go on the ground, the people, residents, they're the one who saying, if it wasn't for them, these things would have happened, would have got the help. Some of the ladies were saying, thank Ramadan. I'm sure everyone's seen that video. They were telling the media, you guys are showing an image against the Muslims that totally different to what they are. They were the first ones to help, give us aid. What have you been doing? Where are the officials?
And I think, like Ishraq was saying, the churches opened up. So it was like people of all faiths coming together and supporting the victims. We've got another caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum, brother. How would you like to contribute to the discussion?
I would like to say, this government is, the fire what happened in London, the building burned.
Sure, brother.
It's, the government, they know this has happened, and, they're making it as a, they know what they put inside the building is not safe for the people, and they knew this. And then they're trying to cover up with a, public inquiry, the government's, trying to hide up. They're not going to, letting the people know, what's going on,
Are you telling me, brother, that the government would risk people's lives? Why would they do? Why would they do that?
Because they know this. Because look at the building. Yeah, the London, fire brigade. They said the building is not safe. Plus, they didn't even put fire hoses in the building, like fire safety, like a water hose. Because the government trying to cut budget, using £5 million, they could invest in these buildings. Instead of investing in poor buildings like this, they're investing into the rich people. They don't care about the people who are just struggling on welfare. They don't care Because even the mayor, even the prime minister of this country is hiding all this.
So, brother, what do you think? What are the consequences? How should people be held to account? Those who are found to be guilty.
If the council should be charged for this, this is man, like murder. If you look at it, they murdered innocent people, families and children. This is real. They're getting away with murder.
So what should happen to those who are found to be guilty?
They should be prosecuted as for manslaughter because they've murdered people. They knew what was in the building was not fire safety. It was a hazard to the families and children in the building.
Okay.
But, I can understand this. But a lot of the families are struggling. Our local community, like mosques and the charities, like the Christian charities, all the religion charities, they're getting together to help people. But when the local council should be taking responsibility for these actions, they're not even stepping up. In the building when people are dying, they don't care.
Thank you for your call. A very powerful call from the caller, clearly, affected by what's happened and the lack of response. We will now go on to a short video which covers some of the victims that were involved, and affected. This is the part 2 of what we saw before. So we'll come back to you in a moment.
In life, they were inseparable. Today, the Belkadi family made their final journey together. In one coffin was Omar. In another, his wife Farah, with their 6-month-old baby Lena, and then 8-year-old Malak. The family and friends who gathered to say goodbye will now look after 5-year-old Tasnim, who survived, but has lost so much. The list of the victims of Grenfell keeps growing. Isaac Paulos was named by police today. The 5-year-old lived on the 18th floor. He was found on the 11th. He'd lost his family in the smoke. They said, "We will all miss our kind, energetic, generous little boy. He was such a good boy who was loved by his friends and family. We will miss him forever." 2 weeks on from the fire, when you visit Grenfell, you find a community in mourning and in limbo. The tower is at the heart of this estate, surrounded by hundreds of other flats. Some of those residents have been moved to hotels, but others have been told it's safe to stay. There's real confusion.
I'm worried about the asbestos from the tower. I'm worried about the risk of collapse from the tower. I'm worried about the lack of security in our blocks now, as all the doors seem to have been left open. And I'm worried about my neighbours, friends and family, and about the missing.
Joe's neighbour Thomasina was visiting her flat today but hasn't stayed here since the fire. Her life is on hold.
We haven't really had the time or the opportunity to process what's happened or to grieve, So it's slowly starting to dribble in and hit us. People will trying to congregate as a community and get together, and there's always one or two of us that haven't made it because we've had a breakdown at some random point of the day.
But they are determined to fight for justice for their community. This group has written an open letter to the Prime Minister demanding all residents are involved in the public inquiry.
We're kind of trapped in this nightmare, and ever since the day where it started that night, and we have basically in a way been ignored.
We need answers and we need to be involved in the process so that it's a fair inquiry.
They say everyone on this estate will have known someone in the tower that dreadful night. No stone will be left unturned.
So that was the footage from 5 News talking about some of the victims who were affected by the devastation that took place on the 14th of June. But Abdul Malik, coming to you, so what's the situation now?
At this precise moment, we have got access to the families, which my friends they're actually working close with. So they rehouse some of them, majority of them, and National Zakat Foundation working with them. So they're the one who's giving them grants.
Sure.
Which is a great job that they're doing. But as I've said before, we are the officials. Even though they did say they gave 5 million grant, that's not enough for them.
Sure. And but Amjad, would you say, weeks on now, we talked about how disorganised it was back then. Surely it's much more organised now and it's being managed much better. Would you say? Would you agree with that?
No, not at all. We would like to think that, and we would hope that.
Weeks on.
Weeks on. Yes, absolutely. There's a sister who's close to me. Her name's Latifa. She actually runs a launch good. Alhamdulillah, she's been on the grounds from day one. Even till now, I just spoke to her the other day. She goes, look, yes, things are coming down, but that's a natural progression. It is coming down, but still, the people that need the aid the most, they're not getting it. Okay, they've been ignored. There's more. There's more about media, how it looks to the public eye. All of this is happening. But there's no actually proper strong organization. They are, what she's doing at the moment is kind of distributing a lot of the aid and the funds to the people that actually need it. She's actually met them on that, and I do know personally that she's been awake until about 2 o'clock in the morning doing this.
Wow, thank you. We've got an email from someone here, from Children of Jannah, who said, we have been working on the grounds providing bereavement support for families who have lost loved ones. Recently we have been supporting a 5-year-old girl who has lost both her parents and 2 sisters and is now living with her aunts. Counselling is an important aspect of relief work that charities need to provide, especially people going through trauma, especially young children that were affected, in particular this young girl who has lost her whole family. Moving on, carrying on from that email, Ishrat, how important is it that, we... Obviously, we're talking about money and all of that, but the counselling support so that these victims who are traumatized, even some of the neighbours were talking about their concerns for their relatives and neighbours and so forth who were affected. How important is it that we provide that counselling support to those who have been affected?
I think that's probably top priority right now, because what this fire has shown is that these people have walked out of that, if they survived, without anything. Without all their materialistic possessions, they don't have their family. All they need is the help, the emotional support, which they're not getting, but they should. That should be top priority right now.
Sure, and
more than the 35 billion flats they're going to be rehoused into, more than all the cash apparently the government's put aside for them. They need that emotional counselling and emotional help more than anything.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show. We've covered something that has affected, people globally, because obviously something that happens locally has a big impact internationally. And I guess what we've learned from today, speaking to our guests, is the fact that despite weeks on from, such a tragedy, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And, the feeling seems to be that, it's the local people, the local projects who are leading on this, and still not enough has been done from a kind of legislative perspective, from a government perspective. So, what we will say is, please carry on supporting the support that you're giving, and we hope to see you very soon. Assalamu alaikum.